And as India and America strengthen their partnership, the one country that seems to be watching closely, no prizes for guessing which one. I am, of course, talking about China here. Also, no prizes for guessing why. China considers both India and America as its rivals. It looks at them as hurdles in its ambition for global domination. So, when India and America sit down to talk, Beijing is bound to be unnerved. It is bound to flex its muscles. Just have a look at the developments over the last 2 weeks. And for the last 2 weeks, Chinese state media has been indulging in constant war rhetoric. One report is on your screen. The Global Times carried this recently. It said that America is pushing India into a proxy war. But is it really? Because last we checked, it was the Chinese president who desperately wants to wage a war. He even said as much during a recent address, by the way, to the PLA troops stationed along the India-China border. Let me give you some context here. Around 10 days ago, Xi Jinping went to the PLA headquarters in Beijing and addressed the troops at a border defense station. And guess what he told them? To remain alert and be ready for combat. And that's not even all. Xi Jinping spoke to members of the Liying, or the Falcon Squad. What is that? It is an elite commando force under the PLA that looks after counter-terrorism operations. And reports say she asked them to improve their skills and vigorously perform their duties. Now, we know that most world leaders regularly interact with military branches. They regularly conduct such sessions. So why does this interaction stand out? Because of the timing. It comes just a month after the clash in Arunachal Pradesh. This is when the PLA tried intruding into Indian territory. It violated the line of actual control in Tawang sector, but was pushed back by the Indian troops. And immediately after this, a report emerged, this one. It said that China was trying to weaponize water by building a dam along the Arunachal border. And this apparently will be a 60,000 megawatt dam, which, if we go by China's track record, can by all means be used to trigger floods in the area. And now we have the Chinese president himself taking his war rhetoric a step further, telling his troops to be combat ready. The question is, who does he want them to fight? Who does he want them to engage in combat with? Well, we know the answer, but why state the obvious? And by the way, it's not just India that China is trying to threaten. The United States also is dealing with similar threats, courtesy Taiwan. America's military presence in the Taiwan Strait and its diplomatic support to the island state have heavily upset the Chinese Communist Party. So much so that some in America say war now looks imminent. Look at this headline. Military generals in America say that predictions of a war in 2025 could very well turn into a reality. And one of them is Mike Minihan, a 4-star general in the US Army, the head of the US Air Mobility Command. He recently stated in a memo to his troops that China and America will fight a war in the next 2 years. Let me quote from what he said. Xi's team, reason and opportunity are all aligned for 2025. I hope I am wrong. My gut tells me we'll fight in 2025. Now, the general's views do not represent the Pentagon, but they do show how concern about the situation is slowly setting in at the highest levels of the American military. And why just the military? Even the corridors of power are whispering about the prospects of war. Take this report, for instance. A top Republican in the House of Representatives agrees with the possibility of war with China. His name is Michael McCall. He is the chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. He says the American Air Force general's warning could be wrong, but he thinks that he is unfortunately right. And what does that tell you? that it's not just India, but also America that is wary about China's intentions. Are there more? Are there other countries or organizations that think China's warnings are alarming? Yes, there are. Like the Secretary General of the NATO, on Wednesday morning, he traveled to Tokyo and warned that China was substantially building up its military and trying to assert its power in the South China Sea. He in fact said China is not an adversary, but one must be careful about the threat that China poses to global security. You have to listen to this.
Beijing is substantially building up its military forces, including nuclear weapons, without any transparency. It is attempting to assert control over the South China Sea and threatening Taiwan, trying to take control of critical infrastructure, including in NATO countries. We don't regard China as an adversary, and we don't seek confrontation with China, or actually we don't seek confrontation with anyone. At the same time, we will be remiss if we did not expose the challenges that China poses to our security, to our values, and to our interests.
So this is what we have. Xi Jinping telling his troops to be combat ready, American generals warning of a war in 2025, and the NATO chief telling the world to be wary about China's intentions. Where are things headed? I am afraid there is no easy answer to this question. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.